Everyone, what's going on? Recently in the mainstream media, one of the big stories is this Pennsylvania Catholic priest sex abuse scandal. And if you follow my channel, what I talk about is signs and symbolism and patterns that exist within our mainstream media and our sports leagues and our history and our everyday life. And if you understand gematria, which is the practice of coding numbers into words and phrases, all of these things make a lot more sense. But every day, our mainstream media puts out stories that are all by a certain code. And if you pay enough attention, there are absolute patterns that exist and they kind of foreshadow what is to come. So if you pay enough attention, you'll figure a lot of things out. All year I've been talking about a uh, major bridge collapse, and then we just got that major bridge collapse in Italy just a few days ago on August 14th. I mean, I talked about how I thought Pink would sing the national anthem at the Super Bowl, then Pink sang the national anthem at the Super Bowl. And this was a month before they even announced her as the singer. Talked about an astronaut from one of the astronauts that went to the moon would probably die this year. Then, like a couple weeks after I talked about that, an astronaut that went to the moon, Alan Bean, died. I mean, just check out some of the other videos I have and some links in the description, and you can learn to apply this a little bit more, even if you aren't experiencing the signs and symbolism that go along with it. But recently, I've been talking a lot about the Cleveland Indians and just Cleveland in general, and how these mainstream media stories are related to the World Series. And it might sound unbelievable, but I talked about the same thing in 2016, and I said the Indians and the Cubs would be in the World Series, and then the Indians and the Cubs were in the World Series, because I picked up on this pattern and it just kept happening over and over. That's why we got the Dakota Access Pipeline stories about the Native Americans, you know, just a month before the Indians made the World Series. So, anyway, back in 2017 and a little bit before that, I talked about this father symbolism that was going on and how it was synced up to Catholic priests, and I even talked about how some odd things happened to me. My daughter was I was trying to watch the movie Spotlight, that is about the 87 priests in Boston molesting kids. And I had just started the movie. Then my daughter wanted to watch something on the TV, and I jokingly turned it to South Park because I know she hates South Park. And it just so happened to be the episode about Catholic priests molesting kids. And I thought, what are the odds? And then I turned it to some other cartoon for her, and I looked up that episode, and it just so happened to be the 87th episode of South Park, right? And then I'm going to watch the movie Spotlight that's about the 87 priests in Boston molesting kids. And in Gematria, the word priest just so happens to equal 87. And the episode of South Park was called Red Hot Catholic Love, that just so happens to equal 87. And I also talked about how this priest, when I was a kid, he used to do weird things to me. He would he came up to me one time and he put his hands over my eyes and he put his dick like right in my back and he started rubbing my shoulders and he's like, "Guess who?" And I had to go to a private meeting at his house. I don't really think I got molested, but it's always been this inside joke that I got molested by this priest. And in 2014, on June 30th, there was an article about this priest, how he got busted for molesting kids. And finally, everybody, my mom and everybody was like, holy crap, you were telling the truth. This guy was a child molester. And I was like, I've been saying this guy's a child molester for years. But that was the reason that I quit going to church, the Catholic church, and whatever else. I quit in like 8th grade, ninth grade-ish. So anyway, his name, Gematria, is Howard Fitzgerald, 87, and he's a priest, right? So, there's an obvious pattern with priest and 87. And what's really hilarious, I went back and I was thinking about they bringing up this priest stuff again in the mainstream media, and as much as I've been talking about the Cleveland Indians, during the World Series of 2016, YouTube took one of my videos and they took a picture of Father Howdy, Father Howard Fitzgerald, and they made it as my thumbnail on my video that I put out about Jose Bautista and Trevor Bauer injuring his finger and Terry Francona giving the camera the bird, right? There was a bunch of finger symbolism. The word finger equals 147, just like World Series. And this was even before the Indians made the World Series. And I talked about how the Indians were going to be in the World Series because of this finger symbolism. And why YouTube did this, I don't know. You know, they were showing me something to do with, Father Howard. YouTube, like, I'm going to pull up my old post. Hold on one second. So I put this video out on October 20th of 2016, and originally it had this picture on it right here. And even when you go to my video editor, this was my thumbnail of Terry Francona flipping off the camera, right? The finger symbolism. And that was on October 20th. And for whatever the reason, on October 23rd, YouTube decided to change the thumbnail of the video to Father Howard. And it was funny. I made a whole post on it. I'll leave a link to the video about it in the description. But they took that picture, I believe it's the same picture. Yeah. They took that picture off of a really old video that I have on YouTube of a song that I made about priests molested kids, right? And yeah, that's where they got the thumbnail. But I put this video out on 2/7 of 2015. So I don't know how they would mix up the thumbnail on October 23rd of 2016, right? So I knew there was something I was supposed to see, and once again, it was synced up to the Cleveland Indians, something that I have been recently talking about again, and that's why I think it's important that we're getting these stories, this big story about molesting priests in the mainstream media again. So anyway, I went back and I was looking up the dates. So this was from 2/7/2015, and then they changed my video clip on October 23rd, 2016. It just so happens to be 624 days. And if you've been following what I have been documenting about the Cleveland Indians, everything to do with it is about 624 and also the date of June 24th. The Indians are cursed by Rocky Colavito being traded to the Detroit Tigers in 1960. And Rocky Colavito in Satanic Gematria equals 624. Detroit Tigers in Satanic Gematria equals 624. This year, the Indians played the Detroit Tigers on June 24th, 624. And, there's much, much more that goes along with it. Even in regards to fathers, the word father in Gematria equals 624. And I've documented about my own father and the the car fire in California that they said was started by a flat tire. And I recently had a flat tire, and I noticed my dad's license plate is like GSR 624. And my dad is born on April 11th, which in most parts of the world, they rate the date as 11/4, like 114. It's the 114th World Series. And if you go to November 4th, 11/4, it's 6 months and 24 days, right? And there's much, much more with it. My son, who's synced up to my dad as well, born 6 months and 24 days after 6/24, and 6 months and 24 days before Rocky Colavito's birthday. And my grandma died earlier this year, 6 months and 24 days before her son, who is my uncle, and he died 6 months and 24 days before my birthday. And that's the day that modern Freemasonry was founded. The word Jesuit equals 624, the Freemasonry within the Catholic Church. Pope Francis the first Jesuit Pope. He's also a Freemason. If you look up old pictures of him doing the hidden hand pose, Freemasonic hidden hand pose. And if you're a Freemason, you're not supposed to be able to be Catholic and vice versa. So, I mean, really, how funny is that? This happened how long ago? And I'm just now seeing the point of it. 624 days. Back then, I didn't know Satanic Gematria. I only knew two forms of Gematria. The Pythagorean method, where you reduce it to numerology, and also just A is 1, B is 2, C is 3, and so on, right? Z is 26. Them were the only two. And then after this World Series, they started flipping the script with a bunch of things, and then we learned reverse gematria and a bunch more that goes along with that as well. You'd have to be following me for a while. It just will take too long to re-explain. But one other thing I wanted to point out was the day that they did this was also October 23rd, which is the day the World Series begins this year. October 23rd. If the Indians don't make the World Series, there's something else that's really important to my own life that I'm supposed to figure out with this riddle with the Indians in 624. If that makes any sense, it should, because all of this stems back to Kabbalah, which, has a core belief that God created the world by merging the letter with the number. And I truly have been saying forever that we live in this code. Nothing is coincidence. Everything happens for a reason. And if you pay enough attention, you can see what is going on in the world. You know what I mean? You can see these patterns, how they affect your own life, how it's synced up to the mainstream media. I truly know there are people who understand this knowledge, and they hate average people like me trying to understand it more. And I truly know that there are people who are using this in a bad way, and they're using these signs and symbolism, and they control our media, and they are manipulating our minds and controlling us through this system. But it's also not a completely bad system. I mean, well, I don't know. I have mixed feelings on living in a completely coded world, so where nothing, it truly feels like there is no, you don't do anything on your own. Everything happens, it's already pre-planned and everything else. That just doesn't seem like the way to live, so. But I have mixed feelings on what exactly I think is going on with it all. But it's just so obvious there are people who understand this and are using it against us. So a few last things here. The Edward Fitzgerald is his full name, and it equals 119. And they kicked him out of the church on January 19th, 119. And it was even after 35 years of being in the Catholic Church. And it was on a date numerology of 35. And the word Catholic equals 35. JFK, the first Catholic president, and he was the 35th president. That's why, because of Catholic. But this 119 is interesting because Indians equal 119. Also, Francis equals 119, like Pope Francis. I never not put the Pope in front of it before, So, also what I found out about this story, the actual story came out on June 30th, but I didn't find out until July 1st, and someone had posted it to me on Facebook or something. July 1st this year is 114 days for the 114th World Series. So, and the word Catholic equals 71. I found out about it on 7/1. So, there's a parallel with the Indians too in Boston, like I've been saying. The Indians defeated the Boston Red Sox in a one-game playoff in 1948 to upset an all-Boston World Series, and then the Indians went on to win the World Series. Terry Francona is the coach of the Indians, and he was the one who broke the curse of Bambino for the Red Sox, right? And now we just have Aretha Franklin dying on Babe Ruth's birth, or the same day Babe Ruth died in 1948, the last time the Indians won the World Series. Think about the Red Sox being cursed by Babe Ruth. And I just pointed out, in regards to all that, a long time ago I had a video that got blocked on YouTube or something. It really isn't that great of a video, but does have some interesting themes with it. It's before I really knew Gematria. I only knew simple Gematria, and I didn't know it was applied to the mainstream media at the time and whatever else. And South Park season 11, episode 4 has a thing about the Russians going to bomb Boston and whatnot. And then is actually a diversion for the British to come and, retake over the United States and whatnot, reminding us of the Boston Tea Party and whatever else. But 11 and 4, 114. South Park equals 114. I had that synchronicity with priests and whatnot with my daughter Claire. Claire equals 114. And that film also involves Bernard Francis Law, the cardinal who was trying to cover up the priests being molesting kids, right? And he was born on 11/4 in real life. So 11/4, another 114. So, moral of the story, I really think that the reason they're bringing these stories back up, especially with Pennsylvania, a big place that I talked about for years, and how it was important to Pope Francis and the Kodig. And then the story comes the same day that we get the bridge collapse in Italy, of all places, where the Pope is from. And in 2016, I even talked about how there was earthquakes in Italy that were synced up to the World Series and the Indians being in the World Series. So I'll leave a link in the description to my old Father's playlist because it also connects to North Korea and Otto Warmbier. Think about it. Dennis Rodman, the worm, goes over there, and then Otto Warmbier gets released. Come on. It's the stupidest crap I've ever heard in my life. I don't know how people have not put that together. And just after I talked about Father Howard Fitzgerald, we got the boat crash, the USS Fitzgerald, in the mainstream media. So I'll find some links. I'll leave some links in the description if you care to watch them and try to understand more of what I'm talking about. But I really feel like that's why we got the story. And then I find out that YouTube messes with me and puts that picture up there, absolutely synced up to what I've been talking about with the Indians. So have a good one. Peace.